Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning. Margaret, in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, describes November as the most disagreeable month in the whole year. Well, whilst I take her point, I offer you 2 agreeable hours of arts, culture, politics and current affairs on Sunday with Michael Portillo. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is proposing a new set of restrictions on those seeking asylum in the United Kingdom. Deterrence has reduced the numbers of asylum seekers in Denmark. Can it achieve similar results here with our legal system? My panel will opine. There's a cacophony of briefing bordering on chaos ahead of Rachel Reeves's budget in less than 2 weeks' time. Having flown a kite to suggest that she would raise the basic rate of income tax, she has retreated. We'll shine a torch through the fog of briefings with expert analysis. Former commanders of the British Armed Forces have accused the Prime Minister of allowing human rights law to undermine the effectiveness of Britain's armed forces. I'll be joined by a former senior SAS commander who backs what the generals are saying. An opera set across the Israeli-Palestinian divide is set to be restaged in London. Composer Keith Burstein will join me to reflect on the capacity of art to depict and to confront conflict. All of that, much more to come, but first, your news headlines from Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good morning. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 11:01. The Home Secretary is set to unveil sweeping measures to tackle illegal migration, vowing to restore order and end the UK's so-called golden ticket for asylum seekers. People granted asylum will only be allowed to stay in the UK temporarily before being returned to their home country when it's deemed safe. They'll also have to wait 20 years before they can apply to settle permanently. That's quadruple the current limit. And the statutory legal duty to provide housing support and weekly allowances will be revoked. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philps says the plans, which are set to be announced in Parliament tomorrow, don't go far enough.
Some of the measures, I say some are gimmicks, which won't work. Some of these are little steps in the right direction. For example, reassessing asylum claims for people who've arrived legally every few years. Fine, that's not a bad idea. We'll support that. But on its own, it's not enough. And we would go much further. We would say for illegal immigrants, they should not be able to claim asylum at all. So there won't even be any need to reassess their asylum claim. They won't be getting it in the first place.
Donald Trump says he'll speak to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer this weekend about his plans to sue the BBC. The broadcaster has apologised for airing an edited version of a speech he gave on the day of the Capitol Hill riot in a Panorama programme. They called it an error of judgment and refused to pay compensation. But the US President told GB News he feels obligated to take legal action against the BBC to avoid it happening again. He's seeking up to $5 billion in damages. Angela Rayner could be laying the groundwork for a leadership challenge against Sir Keir Starmer. The Telegraph reports the former Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary has been offering cabinet roles to MPs in exchange for support. Rayner stepped down from her position in September after controversy over her tax affairs. Riot police in Mexico City have used tear gas against large crowds protesting against government corruption. Thousands of protesters marched through the capital to the National Palace. That's the home and office of the president. Demonstrators, some wearing masks, pushed and kicked the fences protecting the palace, while others threw stones at police. A British woman has died and 28 people injured in Portugal after Storm Claudia brought violent weather to a tourist region in the Algarve. It comes as a major incident has been declared in South Wales due to severe and widespread flooding in Monmouth. People at risk have had to be evacuated. 4 severe flood warnings remain in place across Wales, and in England there are 27. Meanwhile, temperatures are dropping this weekend, with snow potentially on the way for parts of the UK. And in boxing, Conor Benn took revenge against Chris Eubank Jr. to end the long wait for his family to secure a victory in what has been a decades-long rivalry. Benn beat Eubank Jr. by unanimous decision at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last night. Benn had lost to Eubank Jr. earlier this year, and the feud started between their parents in the 90s when Chris Eubank Sr. beat Nigel Benn twice. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at midday.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Bethany Elsey. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has taken to social media to trail her announcement due tomorrow on changes to the asylum conditions. One headline is that asylum seekers could be returned to their countries of origin if they become safe at any moment in the first 20 years of being here, and they would acquire the right to settle permanently only after that time. This is another policy that depends on deterrence, and although Denmark has sharply reduced its asylum numbers, can these proposals be robust here in Britain against legal challenge, since our courts have regard to the European Court of Human Rights? Earlier, GB News presenter Camilla Tominey spoke to Migration Minister Mike Tapp, who defended the government's proposals.
Important that we get control and order to the border and the immigration system, and we are as frustrated as the public with the number of crossings. And the reason we see so many going into northern France to come over to the country is because of asylum shopping. Now, that's because for many we're seen as a soft touch, and the smuggling gangsters often package to those migrants that you're going to get better benefits here than you will in other places.
It's true, isn't it? We are a soft touch.
Not anymore. And of course, we've started strongly with record deportations and removals, up to 50,000 now. Our immigration enforcement rates are more than they've ever been in the history of the country.
So there is
now
some
we're
suggestions
going
that some people have left voluntarily, and you're claiming it as a deportation, and it isn't.
It's deportation and removals, and we're really clear on that.
Joining me now, my panel, political commentator Alice Grant and former Labour advisor Matthew Lazar. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
Alice, Mike Tapp there, the Immigration Minister, claiming that Britain will no longer be seen as a soft touch. Is that right?
The real issue here is that in 1998, Parliament bound itself to the European Convention of Human Rights under the Human Rights Act, incorporating that convention into domestic law. Section 3 is very clear. All legislation must be interpreted in light of the Act, and that has been rigidly adhered to by courts. So, as you rightly mentioned, when it comes to issues like deportations, and we have no choice, really, but to take into account the ECHR. And under Article 8, anyone who has established family life or a right to private life in this country can't simply be deported. So when I see these measures and I see a 20-year time limit, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, people will have come here wanting to stay, claimed refugee asylum, and then establish community, family, friends. And under that, you can't then by law, just remove someone. So the government are in a bit of a difficult situation here, because the root of the issue is quite deeply embedded within statute, and it's not something as simple as being able to just have these deterrent measures. We need a much more radical change and a radical approach, and we need to be very firm, I think, on actually saying that deportation and removal of those who are illegal or those who are coming here under grounds which are just simply not good enough anymore need to be removed.
Denmark seems to have been quite successful in reducing the numbers of asylum seekers quite radically. I assume Denmark adheres to the ECHR?
Absolutely. I mean, I cannot speak for Denmark, but I know that the British court system we really do adhere to the rule of law in this country and to what
you think the Danes don't?
I won't make any judgments on Danish.
All right, let me put
system.
a broader issue to you, and this is a bit of a personal opinion. I don't think deterrence of any kind is going to work, and all policies offered by all parties depend on deterrence, whether it was Rwanda from the Conservatives or leaving the ECHR under Reform UK, or now also under the Conservatives. I mean, it seems to me unless you stop the boats, and I mean some physical action in the Channel, no amount of deterrence is going to work. Discuss.
I agree. I think deterrence is no longer a viable policy in dealing with this issue. It's been tried time and time again, and the results are simply not bearing fruit. So I think that Parliament has to be really honest with itself and see that the Human Rights Act, which basically forces us into taking into account all these different ways of ensuring that people aren't removed here when they come here as refugees, is a reality that they need to face and get around, because if something isn't done about that piece of legislation, we have no choice but to uphold our international obligations under the ECHR. And that is what our courts will do every time a claim is brought by an asylum seeker who's trying to be deported by the government but has a friend or a child or has established some sort of family life. They have a right under our law. So there is not much that can realistically be done. So unless Parliament seriously amends the Human Rights Act and amends our relationship and our obligations under the ECHR, there is no real solution to this issue.
Or indeed, more than that is what I would say. Matthew, Shabana Mahmood has got the most fantastic headlines this morning. But I think I would argue that this is simply more displacement activity. This is more talking about something which actually isn't going to have much of an effect. Discuss.
No, I mean, I totally disagree, Michael. I mean, Denmark is... I'm so pleased this morning because I'm disappointed the government didn't come in with a policy like this, and I think the government would be in a much better shape if it had. I used to do lots of policy work with Danish comrades in the Social Democrats, and I was there while they were developing this policy. They actually sent to every home in Denmark not a leaflet, but a kind of policy guide to the policy they were going to introduce. Why? Because they weren't getting a hearing about all the other policies that they were standing on, because people thought they were not securing the country's borders, and they did this in order to get a hearing. It's a social left of centre government, Social Democrat-led government in Denmark. They were in opposition. They felt that they weren't being listened to on anything else because people thought they were a soft touch on borders, to use the tabloid phrase, and so they developed a tough policy, which did get some kickback from people further to the left than they are, and instead it's been incredibly successful as a policy, and they remain very firmly a signatory to the ECHR, and a country that also, like Britain, values the rule of law. So I think this can work.
Well, those watching on television can now see, migrants arriving, familiar sight, arriving in their diggings. Now, supposing that I were to explain to one of those migrants who's about to part with a lot of money in order to cross the Channel, if I said to that migrant, now, look, here is the deal. When you arrive, although arriving by boat was criminalised in 2022, you will not be prosecuted. You will be taken to a hotel, which may be 4-star. You'll be given money and you'll be fed. But listen, this is a serious point. You might have to wait 20 years to be settled in Britain. I mean, the migrant is not going to be interested in that last point at all.
Well, I think you also have to sort out the first 2 points, because we have to, as the government has pledged to do, although it has done it to a limited extent, reduce the use of hotels. It needs to get rid of the use of hotels. I think what's key with this is everybody on a small boat has, by definition, come through another safe country.
Indeed.
And I think that it is, therefore, what you're doing is what Mike Tapp said there about asylum shopping. What you're trying to do, and similarly, to get to Denmark, but everybody had to go through another country to get there. Principally, they come through Germany, the sort of German border route, rather than in our case, the English Channel. And what it does is it says that the economic pull of coming to your country massively reduces, because you're not going to basically get a passport at the end of it. At the moment, if you are granted asylum under the system, you're effectively going to stay forever. And you're not under this system.
I'm not at all sure that is the point. The prospect of getting a hotel room in short term, of course the government will pay to make sure that you're not destitute. You'll probably get a job delivering pizzas or some other thing like that, because we don't do many checks like that.
Well, we should do digital ID cards.
I know we should do... Well, no, I don't think digital ID cards will sort that out, but we certainly ought to sort out people illegally working. But I mean to say that the number of pulls seem to me to be very, very numerous. And this long-term stuff, it'll be 20 years before you're settled, I don't see how that has an impact on people at all.
Well, the difference is, at the moment, people think that they're going to get that within 5 years, that they're basically, once they're here, they're going to stay. I agree with you. You don't just snip off one pull factor. It is an octopus, and you have to go for each limb. But I think this is a very important part of the package of reducing it. Can I just say also, I think what's really important about this is it distinguishes... If you're being persecuted in a country, and you can clearly show evidence that, that you're a dissident leader in a country, you will be done and dealt with under a different regime. What we've got at the moment is anybody turning up at the border, claiming they're from a country which has got political disturbances, often not showing paperwork, clearly not involved in politics or in anything else, and just saying I'm claiming asylum. And the difference is we have to distinguish between people who are from unpleasant places or people who face a imminent danger in unpleasant places. And actually, that's what the system would do. So if you're, like me, believe that we should have genuine, safe routes to asylum for people who are facing persecution, this actually boosts it, and it gives the system credibility as well.
Alice, as Matthew admitted, during the course of his very interesting remarks, none of these people face unpleasant and difficult situations because they come from France and Belgium.
That's true.
And I think the British voter is puzzled by the following two things. Why did we criminalise this in 2022 and then take people to hotels rather than to prison cells? And why do we admit asylum claims from people who arrive from France and Belgium?
No, those are very, very good points, but that's the issue, as Matthew also mentioned, is that when they come here and they say, oh, but I'm being persecuted in my home country, and we know already that our border force are essentially having to, unwillingly and reluctantly, act as a sort of service route for transporting these people from France. France don't want them. We've signed up to some awful sort of policies like the one in, one out. And it's just the issue at its heart is that our system is fundamentally sympathetic to these claims and to these appeals against deportation.
Let's talk about
that is so deeply embedded and embedded in our system. And that can't be undone, really, unless it's like a very definitive decision by Parliament, because, it doesn't matter if you're not actually being persecuted or distant in a country. If you say that you are, they have to take that as evidence, because, what else are they going to say? Well, we don't believe you. That's not an excuse when you're before a judge, is it? Or a judge can't make that excuse. So if you're telling and if you bring evidence that you're persecuted, even if you're not, like people are doing, just outright lying and taking advantage of the system, that is what we're suffering from. Our system is being entirely taken advantage of.
Matthew, you've heard a certain amount of scepticism from the two of us, but setting that aside, how difficult is so sorry to get this wrong, Shabana Mahmood, how difficult is she going to find things with the Labour Party?
I actually think that not as hard as people think. I think there'll be a lot of noise from the Liberal elite, the sort of Liberal, the Guardian is not going to be very happy about this. It isn't already. But I think in terms of the Parliamentary Party, I think people, because MPs go home and they hear it all the way, every time they meet a voter, in all parts of the country, not just in the Red Wall, I think that actually, of course there'll be discussion about the detail, but I think that the principle will be fine, and I think the government will get this through. And actually, one of the things, for example, is if you don't cooperate in Denmark, people can go to prison. So the idea that people just say nothing, there are lots of tough things as well as the headline of the indefinite leave to remain that I think people will be pleased at when the detail comes out tomorrow.
It rather sounds as if the Conservatives are going to vote for it. So even if some Labour people did not vote for it, probably the legislation will make its way through. Thank you very much to Alice Grant and Matthew Lazar. They will be back at noon to discuss whether there's still a place for public service broadcasting financed by a licence fee. Coming up, we'll try to cut through the rumours about the budget, presumably mainly created by the government itself. My guests will shine the torch of intelligent analysis through the fog of disinformation. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Rachel Reeves has decided not to raise the basic rate of income tax in the budget, probably preferring to drag yet more people on middle-range income into higher rates of tax. Well, joining me now is the business journalist Ian King. Ian, welcome to GB News. Help to clarify this, if you would, please. A few weeks ago, the Office for Budget Responsibility apparently gave the Chancellor bad news about productivity, which meant that the hole that she's trying to fill with taxation got bigger. Then after it was announced that she was not going to raise the basic rate of income tax, she also announced, or it became clear at least, that the Office for Budget Responsibility had in some way reduced the size of the hole again. What was going on?
Well, look, Michael, there's a bit of back and forth that goes on between the Treasury and the OBR. The OBR basically had sort of three different versions of the budget that were put to it. We also think that the Treasury itself would have pushed back on various forecasts that the OBR were making. The productivity point you make is absolutely crucial, by the way. Each tenth of 1% that the OBR downgrades productivity by, that basically gives Rachel Reeves another £7 billion that she's got to find from somewhere. Now, the initial productivity forecast that we think the OBR came up with was a downgrade of 0.3%. So that's 21 billion that she's got to find already. Bear in mind also, the buffer that Rachel Reeves gave herself during the budget last year was incredibly narrow at 9.9 billion. That was very, very swiftly eroded by the fact that they couldn't get their welfare cuts through and in the summer, and there was a back down obviously on winter fuel payments as well. So that automatically eroded her buffer by £6.25 billion. So she was having to look at some fairly meaningful sums of money. Now, what's happened, we think, since then, and obviously, as you say, Rachel Reeves did a lot of pitch rolling, particularly on Tuesday last week, where she gave that speech at number 11, very unusual, as you know. The indication there was that they were going to breach the manifesto commitment. But we think what happened since was that the OBR then went back to the Treasury with its final set of forecasts, and there are a couple of moves that had gone in the government's favour. One is the fact that wages growth appears to have been stronger than the OBR was initially forecasting. And the other was actually down to the government's borrowing costs. Now, and this depends on obviously on gilt yields, which are implied government borrowing costs. And actually what happened between the forecasts is that gilt yields came down very sharply. And the implication of that was that the government might have to pay less in terms of interest on the national debt than the OBR was previously forecasting. And those, I think, are the main reasons why the news was apparently better than expected. And that's what's enabled Rachel Reeves essentially to now turn around and say, well, we don't need to raise income tax after all.
But curiously, the order of events was that she kind of announced that she wasn't going to raise the basic rate of income tax before bringing into play the new findings from the Office for Budget Responsibility, giving the impression to some who manage the markets that actually she'd got into a bit of a panic about the basic rate of income tax because she'd faced, yet again, opposition from the Labour Party. So what's your comment on the political dexterity that's been displayed during this last week?
Well, as you know, budgets are as much political as economic events, and the politics were clearly very, very bad. I mean, you only had to look at the sort of comments from a lot of Labour MPs that they appreciated that a breach of a manifesto commitment, as blatant as this, would have been truly terrible politics. And so I think the fact is they wouldn't have wanted to do this. It was economic circumstances, the paucity of those OBR forecasts that really forced them into having to do that. And when they suddenly get a bit of better news, suddenly that gives them a bit of wiggle room not to sort of go down this really politically very treacherous terrain. I suspect that was probably at the heart of it.
How effective do you think this so-called pitch rolling or kite flying is? I mean, one of the things it suggests to me is that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, having had an omnishambles first budget, has lost confidence in her own political judgment and therefore puts these things out because then she finds out how people are going to react because she's not able to, intuit it herself. And that is not particularly reassuring to the markets.
No, it's not. But I would go back to the original point, which was that she got herself in this hole essentially because she gave herself such a narrow buffer in the budget last year, just 9.9 billion. That is historically very, very low indeed. And as I say, all it took was the government's inability to get welfare cuts and the U-turn on the winter fuel allowance to really erode the majority of that. Then, of course, obviously, you had this rise in government borrowing costs anyway. All of that feeds into the need to build a buffer. I think what we're going to see this time around is that she obviously wants to give herself more of a buffer this time around. Now, you could say this is where she cocked up the politics 12 months ago, because if there's ever a time when you really want to give yourself a solid buffer, it's 4 years away from the next general election. I mean, the argument is if you would have a really, really narrow buffer, really narrow wriggle room, if you think you're going to lose the next general election and you don't want to give your successor, the incoming Chancellor, lots of scope potentially to cut taxes or raise public spending. So she's it's the sort of she was very pro-cyclical there in terms of the buffer that she gave herself 12 months ago, and that was really a political misjudgment in all probability.
Let's look beyond the budget. I mean, it strikes me that these 15 months have indicated that this government is not going to be capable of restraining public expenditure. And public expenditure is going to go up for all sorts of reasons, not least because the government keeps inventing new ways of spending money, like removing the cap on child benefit. Therefore, I put it to you, that it's not just in this budget that we're likely to have tax rises, it's in all budgets.
Well, it will be unless we can get some reasonable growth coming in. I mean, at the end of the day, you grow your way out of deficits, and that's really what the ideal solution would be. But yeah, if you're spending more than you're raising in taxes, you have three choices essentially. One is to borrow more. Well, that's really off limits now, given we've already got a debt to GDP ratio of 100% or so, lower than the likes of France and Italy, but still significantly higher than, for example, Germany or Canada. You either cut spending, as you suggested. That route appears to be closed off to the Chancellor because of the stubbornness of her parliamentary party, or you have to raise taxes, and that's really the situation that we find ourselves in.
Do we conclude from the last week that this budget will be a little bit less bad, that is to say, it will take slightly less in tax than we were anticipating before a few days ago?
Well, I think you can certainly assume that. But if the whispers out of the Treasury to believed, the Chancellor still wants to give herself a buffer of between 15 and 20 billion pounds, and implicit in that to rebuild the buffer that she had last year that was eroded away for the reasons that we've discussed. On that basis, you'd think she still have to undertake fiscal consolidation, i.e. tax increases of somewhere between 25 and 30 billion pounds. So it will probably be of an order last year. Don't forget last year, by the way, you had a lot of people forget this because of the damage that was done to the economy by the big increases in employers' national insurance contributions we got 12 months ago. This was also a very high spending budget last year. People have almost forgotten that. Something like £40 billion worth of increase in public spending. A lot of that, unfortunately, went into things like salary increases for public sector workers, rather than measures that would have actually benefited the economy. But the reason Rachel Reeves did that was she front-loaded all of that public spending for the beginning of the envelope of the Parliament, in the hope that that would generate growth further down the line. So the spending envelope is going to be a lot tighter for public services going forward. Obviously, the NHS and education are ring-fenced to an extent, and then you've also got a big need to increase defence spending, which the government has committed to. But apart from that, I think other non-protected departments are really going to feel the squeeze. You know, the Department for Environment, for example, the justice system. We've got all these court backlogs and so on, and that's really where the pain is probably going to be felt. But there will be tax increases too, no doubt about it.
Thank you very much, Ian King. Thanks for joining me on a Sunday morning. Looking very smart, what's more. Coming up, former British heads of the armed forces have accused the Prime Minister of allowing human rights law to undermine the effectiveness of our Army, Navy and Royal Air Force. I'll be joined by a former senior SAS commander who backs what those commanders have been saying. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Cloudy skies will clear to sunshine through the course of this morning, but it is going to be feeling much colder, with a chance we could also see some wintry showers. The bulk of these showers will be across Scotland, where we do have this cold front skirting its way southwards, and where we'll see the majority of the cloud will be across southern counties, where it could still produce some light outbreaks of drizzle across any hills. But for most, cloud clearing away to leave plenty of sunny spells. Mostly dry, though we can't rule out some showers, mainly around coasts of Scotland, any North Sea eastern coasts too, where they could be a little bit wintry, mainly across hills, and most of the wintry showers will be across Scotland. Nevertheless, though, it is going to be feeling chilly, highs only reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius in parts of the south. Through into this evening, plenty of clear skies, so once again turning very cold across Scotland overnight. We actually got to -7 degrees Celsius last night, so seeing similar temperatures through the course of this evening. Northern Ireland, northwest England too, it will be quite a chilly night with some frost in places, perhaps a bit more cloud around eastern areas, so not turning quite as chilly here. Otherwise, for the bulk of England and Wales, clear skies leading to some very cold conditions, so likely quite a widespread frost across the country and possibly even some icy stretches. Mostly dry, though we still do have these blustery showers skirting any eastern coasts, and they could still be a little bit wintry across hilly ground. But for all, it is going to be a cold start to Monday. Temperatures widely dropping below freezing, many towns and cities across England and Wales in the mid-single figures. So a cold start, yes, but once again on Monday it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies once again, so lots of sunshine around. Still mostly dry, though once again those wintry showers continuing around any eastern coasts, and it is going to be feeling cold, particularly in the brisk northerly winds, highs reaching around 9 degrees Celsius.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. 9 former top British military commanders have accused Sir Keir Starmer of putting national security at risk with the continued persecution of veterans. In a letter to The Times, the 9 signatories warned that so-called legal warfare or lawfare is leading to an exodus from elite units like the SAS. They wrote, "Today, every British soldier who's deployed must consider not only the enemy in front of them, but the lawyer behind them. Make no mistake, our closest allies are watching uneasily and our enemies will be rubbing their hands," which is pretty strong stuff. The Labour government's Northern Ireland Troubles Bill aims to replace the Conservative government's Legacy Act 2023, which offered immunity. Joining me now is retired SAS Commander Brigadier Aldwyn White. Aldwyn, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me down the line. Now, it can't be your position that no former soldier can be prosecuted. And to start somewhere, I mean, can we accept that crimes were committed on Bloody Sunday, that civilians were shot unlawfully by soldiers, even though no one has been convicted for a crime in that instance?
Well, that's a good one to start with, Michael. Thank you. The courts themselves found that nobody actually had committed a crime at the time. And I think, therefore, it has to stand there. It is a very long time ago. It has been raked over for many years, and the evidence is questionable. And the evidence taken at the time was questionable. I don't think you can make a statement as strong as that, no.
You don't? Well, I mean, people died of bullets that had been fired by soldiers. I understand that no one's been convicted, but presumably those people weren't lawfully killed, were they?
They were, if you take the circumstances and that, and I'm not read into this in a huge amount of detail, but if you take the circumstances, there is enough doubt. It is not beyond reasonable doubt, as it were, and therefore the finding came down on the side of, as it were, the soldiers in that incident. An unfortunate incident, but they did come down on the side of the soldiers.
Yes, well, I think the evidence of the soldiers was regarded as unreliable, which I think was, given as a reason for what went on in the courts. But all right, let's move on from what happened in 1972. What I mean to say to you by raising that issue is that it cannot be your position that soldiers have immunity, because soldiers are expected to obey the law. Therefore, where do you think the balance comes down? How do you think you write a law that enables veterans not to feel intimidated, but protects the rest of us and people overseas, for example, from illegal acts performed by soldiers?
Yeah. At no point at any stage over the last year, whilst we've been raising this point, because it is a serious point, at no point have we suggested that the military is above the law.
The military is subject to the law, and certainly in my experience and everything that I did in Northern Ireland, it was quite clearly briefed. We had clear rules of engagement, and we were all very, very well aware that post any live incident, there would be a scenes of crime, there would be statements, and there would be a coroner's inquest. That none of us would suggest in any sense that the military is above the law. Our moral authority comes from actually acting within the law. What we're getting at here is the fact that if you take the incidents that we've been looking at, soldiers who actually have been cleared by coroner's courts post an incident, that they've acted in good faith and well within the rules of engagement, have now subsequently, 20, 30, however many years later, been pulled in by human rights law, which didn't exist at the time, and subjected to what has been almost a sort of rotational series of investigations.
What is it exactly that you would like Sir Keir Starmer to do?
Well, it's quite clear to us. We believe that there is a mess within the framework. As it were, you have to have a legal framework within which to operate. That underpins everything that the military does. And we were used to operating under the law of armed conflict. And we've now introduced human rights into the mix. Somewhere, somehow, it is really up to the government to find a workable legal framework for soldiers to operate in. Because if you continue reinvestigating soldiers, you destroy the bond of trust that's meant to exist between the military and the government. And the end effect is you will not recruit, you will not retain, but also you open up a strategic weakness in the position of the military, which could be exploited by any enemy, opposition, whatever, that you're asked to face.
Brigadier, was the Conservative legislation, the Legacy Act, unsatisfactory? Is the government's bill, which will replace that Act, unsatisfactory?
No, it was in the sense that it gave protection to soldiers. You've given, in this particular instance in Northern Ireland, as it were, complete exoneration and protection to the terrorists. It seems perverse that actually what you do with the people that have actually defended your position, defended the government, that you turn around and continue to take them to court into their old age.
So, yeah, I mean, is that the point that bothers you, that they're investigated again and again and that it goes on for a very long time? Is that the thing that most bothers you? I mean, I'm thinking if I were the Prime Minister, today, I might well want to help you, but I'd need to know very precisely what it is you're saying, very precisely what it is that you want, and I'm not quite sure that I've understood that.
Okay, fine. What we want to do is raise the issue. We're not here to suggest to the Prime Minister exactly how he solves this problem. We wish to air the problem. We want the problem out in public. We feel that the problem actually is damaging. It is damaging to the individuals concerned. It's damaging to their families. It's damaging, frankly, to the morale of the army and its relationship with the government. And it actually threatens capabilities that are essential to our national security. And it opens up a key strategic weakness within our military position. Those are the points we wish to make. We're the operators. We know what we're doing. What the government needs to do is sort out a legal framework within which we can operate that is satisfactory.
Thank you very much indeed. You're a former SAS commander, Brigadier Aldwyn White. And may I thank you, sir, for your service to your country over the years. A government spokesman said, after the false promises of the last government, we are putting in place 6 real workable protections for the veterans that the failed Legacy Act never did. We will not allow the process, like so many times before, to become the punishment of our veterans. These robust safeguards will ensure the rights of those who serve their nation so honourably are protected whilst providing victims with a human rights compliant, fair and transparent system to seek answers. Coming up, we'll be talking about an opera which is set across the Israeli-Palestinian divide. It was restaged in London last night. The composer, Keith Burstein, will join me to reflect on the capacity of art to depict and confront conflict. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Not so much sun across parts of Europe, particularly in the west, spells of rain and some strong winds here. We're also expecting some thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans and Greece. We've still got the remnants of Storm Claudia, bringing spells of rain, strong winds to parts of Portugal, Spain and also northern Morocco. Plenty of showers across central parts of the Mediterranean. These showers turning heavy and thundery across parts of the Balkans and areas of Greece. A mix of sunshine and further showers into next week and feeling a little bit cooler than of late as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, that delightful music is from Keith Burstein's opera Manifest Destiny, which was first staged in 2005, receiving widespread and controversial critical reception for dealing with themes including suicide bombers and terror. Keith has brought the opera back at a time when the conflict is in remission as the ceasefire in Gaza delicately holds. And with me now is Keith Burstein. Congratulations to you. So, as I understand it, we were hearing there a piano accompaniment. You've now orchestrated the opera, and that was what was performed last night.
Yes, that's right. Last summer I decided that I should take that step of providing the work with an orchestration. It worked very well with piano, but there is a limit to the piano to express the whole complexity and depth that was longing to emerge, I think, for over the 22 years since I actually conceived the work.
It has a slight Romeo and Juliet element to it, in that a Palestinian poet, Layla?
Yes, Layla.
Who is also involved as a suicide bomber, is in love with a Jewish composer. Daniel?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, that is extraordinarily controversial, very, very interesting. What made you want to write about that?
So, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, I, like a lot of people, were thinking what on earth actually is going on here, where a small number of people are prepared to kill themselves to kill a large number of other people. I wanted to use opera to x-ray this. And together with Dick Edwards, the Welsh playwright who went on to write the libretto, we decided to set about creating a scenario that could examine the issues that might lie beneath it. So we created this idea of this couple who straddle the great geopolitical divide of Israel and Palestine, which is in some ways seems to be millennia old, and one of the deepest divides. And so, yes, you have a situation of doomed love, if you like, in which they're actually imagined to be an arty couple living in London. He's a composer, a British-Jewish composer. She's a Palestinian Muslim poet.
Yes.
And the idea in the opera is that her father is then killed in the Israeli conflict with the Palestinians. And this radicalises her.
Yes.
And she now pulls away.
And she gets involved in planning to be a suicide bomber.
Yeah.
She gets arrested. I think she pretty much gets beaten up in custody, doesn't she?
Yeah. She actually, before that happens, she's left Daniel in a state of shock. She's gone to the Middle East to become a martyr, as she would see it. And on the way, she meets Mohammed, who is someone from within the core of the Palestinian resistance, but a person a bit like McGuinness and Jerry Adams from within Sinn Féin IRA, who has understood that violence is a dead end, and that violence is always a dead end, and that it just leads to more violence. And so he's looking, and in Layla, he says, no, stop, not you, because you've actually got a far more powerful weapon at your disposal than a bomb, which is your creativity. And that's a transformatory moment in the opera.
Would you like to hold up your poster there? Ralph Steadman artwork, is that right?
Yes, yes.
And I mean, obviously, in a way, it's a rather gruesome poster. You're dealing with a very difficult subject. And goodness, you were even subjected to a legal case.
Yeah.
But do you feel, after all that this opera has been, as it were, worthwhile? Do you think it cuts through? It says something important?
Yes, I do. I should just mention that actually the Steadman image was channeled by a young artist, Petar Dimov, who actually created that. Yes, the opera has had a fundamental effect in the sense that it has led to libel cases. The Daily Mail accused it, happened to be on in Edinburgh just after 7/7, with a very heightened atmosphere. And the Daily Mail group accused effectively me and Dick Edwards, I suppose, of glorifying terrorism, which had just been made a very serious criminal offence. And because I'd won a previous libel case against the Times, I was emboldened, and we won in the High Court, we lost at the Court of Appeal, and I was bankrupted. So certainly on me it's had a life-changing effect. The message of the opera is one of overturning a lot of fundamental presumptions, particularly those that dominated in the press immediately after 9/11. We've just been told that these people who's done this are just sort of demons. And I thought, wait a minute, the effect is demonic, but they're human beings. And so opera has a unique capacity to, as you know, Michael, with your love of opera, it has a unique capacity to penetrate or X-ray the human soul. And that was the purpose of it.
Well, I congratulate you on that. I very much hope that after the performance last night, there will be further performances, because I'm very intrigued by the plot. I'm very intrigued by what you've been through, very intrigued by the music too. Thank you very much. Good luck to you, Keith Burstein. That concludes the first hour of Sunday with Mike Portillo, but please do rejoin me at noon. My panel will discuss whether public service broadcasting is something we should be willing to pay for. Stefan Kyriazis has been out and about in the West End. He'll bring us his reviews of Hunger Games and Coven shortly. Doogie Beattie has a special report on the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And we're turning to the party season. I'm going to be trying festive drinks. So cheers to all of you. See you later. Come back.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Cloudy skies will clear to sunshine through the course of this morning, but it is going to be feeling much colder, with a chance we could also see some wintry showers. The bulk of these showers will be across Scotland, where we do have this cold front skirting its way southwards, and where we'll see the majority of the cloud will be across southern counties, where it could still produce some light outbreaks of drizzle across any hills, but for most, cloud clearing away to leave plenty of sunny spells. Mostly dry, though we can't rule out some showers, mainly around coasts of Scotland, any North Sea eastern coasts too, where they could be a little bit wintry, mainly across hills, and most of the wintry showers will be across Scotland. Nevertheless, though, it is going to be feeling chilly, highs only reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius in parts of the south. Through into this evening, plenty of clear skies, so once again turning very cold across Scotland overnight. We actually got to -7 degrees Celsius last night, so seeing similar temperatures through the course of this evening. Northern Ireland, northwest England too, it will be quite a chilly night with some frost in places, perhaps a bit more cloud around eastern areas, so not turning quite as chilly here. Otherwise, for the bulk of England and Wales, clear skies leading to some very cold conditions, so likely quite a widespread frost across the country and possibly even some icy stretches. Mostly dry, though we still do have these blustery showers skirting any eastern coasts, and they could still be a little bit wintry across hilly ground. But for all, it is going to be a cold start to Monday. Temperatures widely dropping below freezing, many towns and cities across England and Wales in the mid-single figures. So a cold start, yes, but once again on Monday it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies once again, so lots of sunshine around. Still mostly dry, though once again those wintry showers continuing around any eastern coasts, and it is going to be feeling cold, particularly in the brisk northerly winds, highs reaching around 9 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
May I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. L.M. Montgomery describes November as the month of crimson sunsets, parting birds, deep sad hymns of the sea, passionate wind songs in the pine. On this mid-November Sunday, I offer you another hour of arts, culture and current affairs on Sunday with Michael Portillo. A culture war has erupted over the internal report commissioned by the BBC into its performance, which reveals what some have criticised as institutionalised bias. Today we step back to ask, what is the requirement for a broadcaster funded by what is in effect a tax? My panel will have views, no doubt. Stefan Kyriazis has been out and about in the West End and beyond. He'll bring us his reviews of the Hunger Games and Coven shortly.
I don't think I realized the strong role that the Ulster people played in the founding of America, and having that personal tie to the work has made it that much stronger for me.
2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence of the United States, the start of America's journey towards becoming a republic. Doogie Beattie will bring us his special report. And we're now halfway through November and attention turns to party season. Which tipples are best for your festive gatherings? Drinks consultant Lily Thomas will share with me her recommendations. All of that and much more to come, but first your news headlines from Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 12:01. The Home Secretary is set to unveil sweeping measures to tackle illegal migration, vowing to restore order and end the UK's so-called golden ticket for asylum seekers. People granted asylum will only be allowed to stay in the UK temporarily before being returned to their home country when it's deemed safe. They'll also have to wait 20 years before they can apply to settle permanently. That's quadruple the current time limit. And the statutory legal duty to provide housing support and weekly allowances will be revoked. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the plans, which are set to be announced in Parliament tomorrow, don't go far enough.
Some of the measures, I say some are gimmicks, which won't work. Some of these are little steps in the right direction. For example, reassessing asylum claims for people who've arrived legally every few years. Fine, that's not a bad idea. We'll support that. But on its own, it's not enough. And we would go much further. We would say for illegal immigrants, they should not be able to claim asylum at all. So there won't even be any need to reassess their asylum claim. They won't be getting it in the first place.
Donald Trump says he'll speak to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer this weekend about his plans to sue the BBC. The broadcaster has apologised for airing an edited version of a speech he gave on the day of the Capitol Hill riot in 2021 in a Panorama programme. They called it an error of judgment and refused to pay compensation, but the US President told GB News he feels obligated to take legal action against the broadcaster to avoid it happening again. He's seeking up to $5 billion in damages. Angela Rayner could be laying the groundwork for a leadership challenge against Sir Keir Starmer. The Telegraph reports the former Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary has been offering cabinet roles to MPs in exchange for support. Rayner stepped down from her position in September after controversy over her tax affairs. Riot police in Mexico City have used tear gas against large crowds protesting against government corruption. Thousands of protesters marched through the capital to the National Palace. That's the home and office of the president. Demonstrators, some wearing masks, pushed and kicked the fences protecting the palace, while others threw stones at officers. A British woman has died and 28 people are injured in Portugal after Storm Claudia brought violent weather to a tourist region in the Algarve. It comes as a major incident has been declared in South Wales due to severe and widespread flooding in Monmouth. Emergency services in the area have been carrying out rescues, evacuations and welfare checks. 4 severe flood warnings remain in place across Wales. Meanwhile, temperatures are dropping this weekend with snow potentially on the way for parts of the UK. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at 12:30.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Bethany Elsie. The British Broadcasting Company, as it was, began to broadcast on the wireless in 1922. Its Director General intended that it should inform, educate and entertain. It was to be funded by a licence fee to be paid by everyone with access to receiving equipment. And since that was, in effect, a tax, it was required to be scrupulously impartial. Now that we have a multiplicity of providers of content, is there any need for a public service broadcaster? And can a licence fee be justified? Is impartiality just too hard to achieve? Without a licence fee, would we still expect the BBC to be non-partisan? Good questions, I think, for my panel. Political commentator Alice Grant and former Labour advisor Matthew Lather. Matthew, do you think that the licence fee has a place in modern society?
Yes. I think the BBC is an essential part of British society and an essential part of Britain's strength in the world, but it's clearly one that needs to get its house in order rapidly. I mean, you know, declare an interest. I worked at the BBC for about a dozen years, and you know, I'm very proud of having done so. But actually, a little bit of me dies when you see cack-handed things like the 2 bits of the Trump speech being sliced together. I first learned how to direct by a young man called Robbie Gibb, and look what happened to him. So, and the reason for mentioning that is the BBC used to recruit people from political backgrounds, and yes, we knew about politics, and therefore we knew how to be impartial. I think one of the problems the BBC has now is it's full of young people who don't kind of understand, they're not really political with a capital P, and instead you end up in this mess. But yes, we need the licence fee for the moment. It may be that technology overtakes it, but I think at least one more renewal of the charter with the licence fee. But we must, however we fund it, keep the BBC as a thriving British institution.
I mean, I declare my interest too. I do a lot of work for the BBC. I've enjoyed it enormously, and I support the BBC. But I very often think that the BBC's survival is best guaranteed by getting rid of the licence fee. I mean, the licence fee to me, you know, is a receding piece of ice on which this polar bear is looking less and less comfortable. Fewer and fewer young people are paying it, so the money is reducing, and the sort of ethical justification of the licence fee is becoming weaker as people have access to any number of other outlets of content. And for that matter, if you look at what the BBC does, particularly on television, there's not so much now that one would regard as public service. There's not so much about the arts. There's not so much that somebody else wouldn't make. And indeed, I think we've been quite surprised to find that the private sector does make quite difficult and demanding content that people are willing to pay for. So why do you think the licence fee should go on?
Well, I think because at the moment it's the best, it's sort of like democracy, isn't it? It's the least worst option. At the moment, I don't think there's quite a settled idea of what the alternative might be. Some of the European countries have got rid of their licence fees. Some put a tax on broadband, for instance. It's a very, sort of few quid or two a month on every broadband connection, which then goes into ring-fence public broadcasting. I agree with you that it is ice that is melting. I think at the moment there's sufficient ice and there isn't a sufficiently frozen alternative, as it were, that you can go for. And overall, actually, the number of people paying the licence fee is still higher because the population's got bigger, so the percentage has slightly gone down, but the overall total of people paying it is enough to sustain it. But sustain it, we must. But I think it's not just an editorial. What I want to see is somebody running the BBC who cares about programmes and who cares about the output and understands that the output involves politics and political decisions. Well, what we've had is a very pleasant middle manager from marketing who clearly was out of his depth, and we need somebody with real creative leadership who says, I don't care if the percentage of people who tune in every week goes down if we're doing things the market doesn't do. Serious programmes. The sort of programmes I used to make, the political documentaries that I used to make, aren't made anymore. They should be.
Luckily, the sort of documentaries I used to make, I'm still making.
Absolutely.
Very lucky in that respect. Alice, what do you think about the licence fee?
I think the licence fee is simply no longer justified for three main reasons. Obviously, the first is that the BBC has fundamentally failed in its mission. If going back to Lord John Reith's words in 1922, if its purpose was to inform and educate, then it should be judged by that extent. And leading on to my second point, I think that the recent Trump scandal just shows that it's fundamentally failing in that respect. And yes, there are many good aspects about it. It has great potential. We've received a lot of educational programmes as well. But when something of such importance as a geopolitically important statement by the President of the United States is edited so as to show that he is citing violence when he wasn't, that is such an outright lie to be disseminating to the public. And the BBC, knowing the sort of status they have, to do something like that, I think just shows that they are no longer caring at all about their fundamental purpose. And then my third reason would simply be that the licence fee is affecting, essentially, I think, older generation pensioners, because you're right, a lot of my generation aren't watching TV and aren't paying the licence fee. I certainly get my information from GBNews, online, digital, YouTube, social media platforms. It's a very crowded market, and I simply don't think that the BBC can withstand this, because people are going to be choosing news information sources which they can trust, and I don't think the BBC still has that trust.
I wonder, though, whether it's quite easy to exaggerate this. I mean, you say how terribly important and awful this thing was. As I understand it, they did it twice, on Newsnight and then on Panorama. And I think the Newsnight then must be more than 2 years ago. And in 2 years, no one outside the BBC spotted that it had happened.
But
so how important was that?
No, but that's precisely the problem, that it took an internal whistleblower to say, oh, this was incorrectly edited, deceiving the whole of the British public who watched that, thinking that Donald Trump was continuously inciting violence in this speech. That was not true. No. That was a fundamental lie. And to present it as such is a real issue, I think.
I wonder whether you're playing into the hands of the people inside the BBC who've been mounting the defence, because it strikes me that what they're doing is they're focusing everything on the Donald Trump clip. I mean, there's a great chunk of stuff about the Arab service.
Yeah.
I can't see why the BBC doesn't, for the moment, close the Arab service until it can reform it, because it's clearly out of control.
What I would say is that the reason why the Trump incident has garnered so much attention is because it's symptomatic of something that we've known for so long. Brexit coverage, COVID coverage from the BBC was astonishingly misleading in many ways, playing to the fears of the British public, twisting the narrative. We have never fully felt a sort of full confidence in the BBC for quite a long time on some of the most important issues. The Trump scandal just ignited this again and brought it to the fore. And I think it just shows that trust is lost, and once trust is lost, why should the licence fee be justified?
Matthew, has trust been lost? I mean, some opinion polls would certainly say that trust has gone down. And Alice makes the point that, people who voted for Brexit, many of them do feel that they weren't represented by the BBC. Do you recognise problems like this?
Yeah, look, I also think on the other side of that argument, you've got a lot of people who think the BBC made Nigel Farage, so that, people on the left of politics who may now, support the Greens.
What's the argument? How do
because basically they put Nigel Farage on Question Time so often that they felt obligated to, to feature whichever part, the UKIP and then the various iterations since, that effectively they created the monster because they gave it airtime, and particularly actually because older voters are the most likely to watch the BBC and they're the most likely to vote Reform. So, I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm saying that you have the two sides of the coin as well from people who've... The problem is when you've got a country where the middle sort of consensus of opinion is collapsing, then the BBC's getting it from both sides. But the BBC does have to get its own house in order, both editorially and creatively, in my view.
OK, fine. I mean, I think people on the right say, yes, of course there are examples of criticisms coming from the left, but it seems to me that, if you look at if we're looking at LGBT, if we're looking at Brexit, if we're looking at President Trump, if there is a bias, it's always on the left.
Yeah, I think always, in terms of the output, people would say a lot of it was on the left, if you take the Farage issue aside. And look, I think there is. When I worked at the BBC, I was one of the more right-wing people there, but I was also about the only person who'd not been to a public school. I remember one Friday in BBC Current Affairs, was in the heart of Downton Abbey. Literally, we played a game with anybody who went to a state school stand up, and it was me and the departmental executive assistant. Everybody else was posh and sort of liberal left. They weren't Labour, they were liberal left, and that's got. And one of the things that got worse.
Sorry, I wasn't in the building.
Absolutely,
I could have stood up too.
Exactly. And we would have been in that minority because you have that groupthink. And one of the problems you have now is because of the way the BBC works, without boring people, but you've had a hollowing out of what you might call older hands, and you have a huge percentage of people who are in their 20s and who just come with that groupthink attitude.
Alice, I think there is a danger for the right. If the right is conceived as wanting to destroy the BBC or wanting the BBC to fail, and I think you've sounded a bit like that today, I think that may be an issue as well. I mean, I want to make it very clear, I want the BBC to be hugely successful and to, be a beacon for Britain around the world, as it has been. I happen to think that they're doing the wrong thing in trying to hold on to the licence fee. I think, like Netflix, they've got to jump into the commercial sphere. But tell me, do you want the BBC to fail?
Absolutely not. Good. My argument is certainly that the licence fee just simply has no place in our modern society. It's not that I want the BBC to fail. I care very deeply, in fact, about our National Broadcasting Corporation. The point is that it no longer serves its purpose. It's no longer adhering to its fundamental principles of impartiality and of informing and educating the British public in a way that is neutral and actually effective. So insofar as it has failed in that mission, why should we pay for it? I think there is scope for reform, and Tim Davie was someone who seemed to be a little bit more conservative, hopefully, and we all hoped that perhaps he would bring in a more measured stance to that coverage. That hasn't happened. So the real question is, will it? Because what we've heard today, I think, is that it's very much governed by an establishment who are liberal and leftist. Is that too much of an issue to overcome? Probably.
I remember on Question Time, maybe a couple of years ago, I was making the point that I didn't think the licence fee could survive. I thought the BBC ought to be moving on to some other funding model. And I think Fiona Bruce was kind of rather shocked that I said this. And watching the response of the BBC in the last week, it looks like they put the wagons in a circle. And therefore you think, well, actually, probably no one within the BBC is allowed to say, look, chaps, this thing is running out. We need to be thinking where we go next. To save the BBC, we need to think of an alternative. I mean, that's just my idea, but at least, within the BBC, perhaps have the argument that there's the licence fee or there's something
And actually, I think that argument has been had in the past. I think there was more intellectual creativity about the future of the organisation than there has been over the last 5-10 years, where that sort of blinkered atmosphere has worked. Yeah, what you need to do is have a BBC that acknowledges that maybe for the moment the licence fee remains, if they want to make that argument, the least worst option, but that going forward something is going to have to change because technology is changing. I mean, after all, it's now the TV licence fee, it was the radio licence fee originally. Life doesn't stand still. And I think what we need is a BBC that is confident in its own intellectual abilities, and that includes the ability to look at its future and think about its future, as well as more intellectually confident about its output in every sense, both journalistically and by doing a whole range of things that it doesn't do as much as it used to do, and it should do.
Alice, one of the arguments that may not be entirely apparent to the public is that the BBC competes with GBNews and other news outlets, competes with lots of newspapers, because, of course, a lot of the BBC is now read rather than consumed through vision. And there is just this argument about fairness. I mean, all those people that I mentioned, they have to gain their money from readers, from advertisers, from viewers, from listeners. But the BBC uniquely does not, because the money arrives willy-nilly.
Precisely. I'd say that has made them lazy, in fact. Clearly, the Panorama fudge shows that they are taking for granted their status in our society as the BBC, and therefore not producing content which should be impartial and informative. So I would say that, indeed, let them compete truly and fairly with other news outlets, as will they have to do anyway.
I hope the viewers and listeners will think that we have aired views on all sides of the question, as I think a broadcaster should. The
Reithian tradition alive.
The BBC says that it's had no further contact from President Trump's lawyers at this point. A spokesman for the corporation said that. In an earlier letter, President Trump said, while the BBC... the letter to President Trump said, the BBC sincerely regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited. We strongly disagree that there's a basis for a defamation claim. I'm so grateful to Alice Grant and Matthew Lazar. Hope to see you again very soon. Now, coming up, Stefan Kyriazis has been on the prowl. He's returned safely from London's West End with his reviews of Hunger Games and Coven, and we'll hear those shortly. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The University of Sheffield has raised a few eyebrows after slapping death and violence triggers on, you know what's coming, the Bible. Christians and historians have dubbed the warnings as misguided and absurd and incompatible with discussions about morality. Joining me now is co-host of the Catholic Unscripted podcast, Mark Lambert. Mark, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Mark, I mean, I can see from the smile on your face already what you make of this story, but just articulate for me your feelings about it.
I think it's typical of the culture that wants to sexualise our children and have drag queens and all this kind of stuff. And they want to censor the Bible, you know, they want to censor the book that built our civilization. It's just so vacuous in academic terms that this is the way that they want to move forward. And it's kind of redolent of that post-Enlightenment ideology that says that we need to tear down the things that have worked for hundreds of years. You know, we've stood on the shoulders of those who've gone before us, built on these principles. But in reality, it stifles critical thinking, any deep textual engagement. And instead of equipping students to grapple with complex narratives that reflect the human condition, like sin, sacrifice, salvation, these warnings promote intellectual avoidance, reducing profound theological events like Christ's crucifixion to just triggers for graphic bodily injury or sexual violence. This isn't education, Dawn. It's a superficial evasion that undermines the very purpose of academia.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Like the spy who came in from the cold, Stefan Kyriazis has returned from a blustery week in London's West End to the warmth of our studio. Jolly nice to see you. And,
hello, lovely to see you.
And indeed, Rafa.
I know, wind blown.
What do you want to talk about first? You went to Hunger Games?
I did go to the Hunger Games.
And the Hunger Games is being performed in, what, a purpose-built stadium or something?
Yes, all the way out in Canary Wharf, 1,200-seater, and it is literally like a stadium, so we're seated in the round. So you're almost like a small amphitheatre, and it's recreating. So it's the Suzanne Collins 2008 book, which then became the film with Jennifer Lawrence. All these fantastic people started a huge franchise. So this is a massive investment for the Troubadour Group, who already have...
Have you any idea how much?
No, but
it made me think about ABBA The Voyage.
Yeah.
So the purpose-built facility, obviously capable of achieving extraordinary effects, is that right?
Not on. So it's nowhere near on the ABBA scale, and ABBA is also built for the show with lights, lasers, backdrop screens, and everything. So this, I'm assuming, is a venue that can then be adapted.
Right.
There's effectively no sets because we're in the round. Just things come up out of the floor, and you could do that with any show. So no, but
there are stunning effects, aren't there?
Not particularly.
You weren't stunned?
No, I was not stunned at all. It starts, basically, you've got...
Doesn't something fly through the air on fire?
There's a chariot.
That would be what I'm referring to,
yeah. But I've seen cars fly in Back to the Future, and I've seen beds fly in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, and the fire, they're not really on flames. It's like little puffs of pyros. So I'm sorry. And it starts with John Malkovich, who is not there, but he's doing the Donald Sutherland role as the president. We're in Panem, futuristic, post-apocalypse, tiny part of livable America. Absolutely corrupt, luxurious central city that leeches off all the districts that supply all the wood, coal, food, whatever. And they put on these Hunger Games every year where 2 kids from each of the 12 districts literally fight to the death. And President Snow is our evil, boo-hiss baddie, and Malkovich is basically doing this role pre-recorded on video, and I have not seen anybody look more bored, more disinterested, or with more disdain, which is kind of how I felt by the end. I just didn't care. The fight scenes were really naff. This is kids fighting to the death, killing each other, and some of them relishing it. I didn't care. It was like watching Ninja Turtles. There felt like there were no stakes. Too much exposition. The main girl for me, I'm sorry, I'm not naming names for anyone in the show, just didn't work. And all you've got is this, it was brought extraordinarily to the screen by superb actors and superb costume and set designers. None of this for me worked. And I have gone very low with my review, but I've seen an awful lot of 3-star reviews, which I think are a waste of time. It's just, it doesn't work, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the effort, and it's really disappointing for me. So I left on a massive low, having walked in and seen this fantastic setup, and it's all beautifully lit. So that it could have been wonderful, but it's badly stage directed and scripted.
Was it full?
Yes, press night always is. They're booking into next October. I don't know what that means, but I also know that they really, really have to make this show work. So obviously...
because of the budget that's been invested?
Yeah, and also these sorts of things, everybody's watching, because we've had all these musicals brought to stage, like classic musical films or rom-coms. This is the first time, I mean, Lord of the Rings was tried and didn't really work. This is the time you're bringing a big sort of fantasy sci-fi franchise to the stage and trying to make it work. So everybody else is watching, and these producers and the Troubadour Group have obviously invested a lot of money.
Anyway,
but don't spend yours, Michael.
OK, I'll avoid doing that. But it's marvellous that you say what you think. I just love it. Now, you've got another thing. Is the other thing called Coven? Is that how you pronounce it?
So it's Coven, as in a coven of witches. Yeah. And basically, we're heading up to North London. This is a 292-seater, tiny local community theatre. Top price tickets, £45. Original musical about the Pendle witch trials and what happened afterwards. All female cast, female writers, composers, directors, everything. I left exhilarated, electrified, high, thrilled. I've gone the other way. There's lots of critics again go, well, it needs to do work and everything. And I'm like, I loved it. It's powerful, it's important. It's a bunch of women in prison, and weird women, wise women, whatever, they were just apothecaries, herbalists, midwives and wives that men just wanted to get rid of or shut up. And there's all of this backdrop in it. It's Lancashire. The music for me, it reminded me of Hamilton in sense of the rhythmic pounding of the music. There's lots of foot stamping, there's drums on stage, musicians on stage. I loved it. The music's stunning, slightly creaky lyrics here and there, but the story is powerful and interesting and also often told with great humour. So even though it's a heavy, dark subject, it's very funny in places, very coarse in places, which I liked. It just felt vivid, visceral, real, and that one's booking through until January, and I know it's selling really heavily, which I'm thrilled about. But this got a proper standing ovation. Like, everybody surged to their feet. Not like these performative ones you get in the fancy West End where everyone's checking who's standing and all the rest. It's really important theatre, this, and I'm really thrilled that it's happening and that it's so successful. And you compare that to the prior show, and there's just no... It's a world apart. So I really want to support and encourage people to go and see shows like this. And I've just been to Manchester to see a show, which we'll talk about next week. But there's so much good stuff out there. So get people out seeing them.
You told me, I can't remember if you told me what the name of the theatre was. You said it was 298
It's the Kiln
seats.
Theatre.
The Kiln Theatre.
Kiln Theatre.
And where's that?
That's up in Kilburn.
Kiln Theatre.
So North London, tiny little theatre. Love it. Please, everybody go. And then we go from that to the other extreme, back to the lavish luxury of the Royal Opera House. And this is a triple bill from the Royal Ballet called Perspectives. Only 8 performances of this, but it's wonderful. And it's 3 different pieces, which I love. First piece is by Balanchine, and it's just, he was neoclassical, but without the rigid form and slightly sort of cod storytelling of classical ballet. And he just wanted dancers to evoke the beauty of the music, and they do so much. But for me, the great piece is the centrepiece. Kathy Marsden choreographed The Cellist, which I liked, but I thought was a bit over fussy. There were times when I was like, I can't see what's going on, too much happening. This is pared right back. We've got this incredible slate bridge arcing off into the horizon that covers the whole of the backdrop of the stage. Benjamin Britten music, written just before World War II. He'd hopped off to America as a pacifist and objector. But the music, you can feel stuff is coming, something surging in the background, almost like the ocean that we can't see. One chap, bohemian, dancing on the beach. His mates come in, they're all dancing. William Bracewell, it was choreographed upon, wonderful. Matthew Ball, Divine, comes on as a very slinky male interest. I've never seen such male duets where they literally wrap around, they almost knot each other's bodies, lift them upside down, go through legs wrapped around. Tender, intimate, muscular, powerful. I really loved it. And then slowly sort of militarism, authoritarianism comes in, and conformity, and our central character is kind of torn between the two.
You're still talking about the second piece?
Yes, just beautiful, beautiful. Each piece was 35, 40 minutes long, so a proper chunk. Overall, it's nearly 2 hours of dance. And then the final piece is by Justin Peck, and it's Sufjan Stevens who wrote the music for Call Me By Your Name. But this time it's jazz and orchestral, it's big widescreen music, geometric patterns on the backdrop, everybody making very angular shapes, but exhilarating leaps and jumps out of the formations. Really thrilling stuff. I'm really, really excited by this triple bill. All different things, and a lot of dancing, and a lot of very good dancing. And that's on until the start of December at the Royal Opera House, and I thoroughly recommend that.
Royal Ballet going through a pretty good period.
They are. They're doing great stuff. It's very exciting what they're doing, and they're taking some bold new choices. 2 of those pieces, the second 2, one was a world premiere, one was a UK premiere.
Just very briefly, have you got lots of Christmassy stuff coming up?
I've got Christmas carols coming out of my ears, and I am thinking I might try some pantos this year. I don't do a lot of panto, but my time has freed up, so I think I'm going to check out a bit of that. I'm surprised, you've never done panto?
I've never appeared in panto. Is that
Why
what you're
not?
asking?
We've got Jeremy Corbyn coming up in panto in North London.
Yeah.
Get on.
And of course, Christine Hamilton and Neil Hamilton used to do it, but no.
Little pair of hose and tights. Pied Piper, or I don't know, Robin Hood. I can see it, Michael.
Thank you, Stefan. Your time is up. Stefan Kyriazis.
Time to go.
Time is definitely up. So, coming up, 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but the Declaration itself was only the start of America's journey to a republic. Doogie Beattie will bring us his special report. But just before that, your news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
I'd love to see you in Panto too, Michael. Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will announce huge changes to tackle illegal immigration in the House of Commons tomorrow, vowing to restore order. Donald Trump says he'll speak to the Prime Minister this weekend about his plans to sue the BBC for up to $5 billion for defamation. It's reported the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is plotting to challenge Sir Keir Starmer's leadership, offering cabinet roles to MPs in exchange for support. The UK has seen its coldest night since March, with -7 degrees recorded in the Scottish Highlands, and snow could hit parts of the UK just days after Storm Claudia caused severe flooding. And one of Japan's most active volcanoes has erupted multiple times, sending plumes of smoke and ash nearly 3 miles into the air and causing dozens of flight cancellations. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at 1 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Cloudy skies will clear to sunshine through the course of this morning, but it is going to be feeling much colder, with a chance we could also see some wintry showers. The bulk of these showers will be across Scotland, where we do have this cold front skirting its way southwards, and where we'll see the majority of the cloud will be across southern counties, where it could still produce some light outbreaks of drizzle across any hills. But for most, cloud clearing away to leave plenty of sunny spells. Mostly dry, though we can't rule out some showers, mainly around coasts of Scotland, any North Sea eastern coasts too, where they could be a little bit wintry, mainly across hills, and most of the wintry showers will be across Scotland. Nevertheless, though, it is going to be feeling chilly, highs only reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius in parts of the south. Through into this evening, plenty of clear skies, so once again turning very cold across Scotland overnight. We actually got to -7 degrees Celsius last night, so seeing similar temperatures through the course of this evening. Northern Ireland, northwest England too, it will be quite a chilly night with some frost in places, perhaps a bit more cloud around eastern areas, so not turning quite as chilly here. Otherwise, for the bulk of England and Wales, clear skies leading to some very cold conditions, so likely quite a widespread frost across the country and possibly even some icy stretches. Mostly dry, though we still do have these blustery showers skirting any eastern coasts, and they could still be a little bit wintry across hilly ground. But for all, it is going to be a cold start to Monday. Temperatures widely dropping below freezing, many towns and cities across England and Wales in the mid-single figures. So a cold start, yes, but once again on Monday it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies once again, so lots of sunshine around. Still mostly dry, though once again those wintry showers continuing around any eastern coasts, and it is going to be feeling cold, particularly in the brisk northerly winds, highs reaching around 9 degrees Celsius.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I hold those words to be some of the most beautiful ever penned. 2026 will mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The body in charge of these celebrations, the 250 Commission, has made its first visit outside the United States to Belfast, where it signed a memorandum of understanding with the Minister of Communities. Our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie, went along.
America is preparing to celebrate its birth, and they are determined to educate a new generation, explaining the political thinking and unrest that brought about revolution. They are now tracing the lineage of those that had key roles in 1776.
My maiden name is Mellon, which has very strong Ulster roots. And so as my family started learning more about our lineage and our ties to Northern Ireland, my parents came this summer and they got to spend a lot of time here. And it's really helped shape the way I'm helping to lead America 250. It's now become personal to me, and that I'm able to tie my heritage to this founding work. I don't think I realized the strong role that the Ulster people played in the founding of America. And having that personal tie to the work has made it that much stronger for me.
The declaration was signed on the 4th of July, with only two names featuring, that of John Hancock and Charles Thompson. He was born in Northern Ireland and is best known for designing the seal of America, but his influence was much greater than that.
Charles Thompson, for me personally, one of the most fascinating characters of the American Revolution. And he serves as the secretary of the Continental Congress from 1774 all the way through the Constitutional Convention in 1787. If there was one person who I wish I could have dinner with, it's probably Charles Thompson.
While America enjoys its place in the world, its own history and culture have been somewhat set aside, and the committee want that explained to the new generation.
I think to some degree, many Americans have forgotten why we had the Declaration of Independence in the first place. So this is also an opportunity to commemorate, to celebrate the document itself, the people that were behind it, the fortitude of those men and women, and what they were fighting for, and where we find ourselves today in the world. I think there's a lot to learn there, especially from Ulster.
The roles played by the Scots, Irish and Welsh have formed that special relationship with Britain, but it may have been pushed into the historical archives.
I think the story is really well known of the Irish immigrants to America in the 19th century, but less known is the story of those from Ulster in the 18th century who essentially founded the country, and that's a story worth telling.
Doogie Beattie, GB News, Belfast.
A story worth telling. Thank you very much, Doogie Beattie. Time for the Great British Giveaway now, and there's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to enjoy Christmas on us. £40,000 in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and a GB News festive goodie bag. Make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details that you need.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash so you can have a brilliant new year. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, the decorations, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news? You'll get it all in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB 17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, party season glows on the horizon. Drinks consultant Lily Thomas will be here to share her recommendation for festive tipples with me. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Not so much sun across parts of Europe, particularly in the west, spells of rain and some strong winds here. We're also expecting some thunderstorms across parts of the Balkans and Greece. We've still got the remnants of Storm Claudia, bringing spells of rain, strong winds to parts of Portugal, Spain and also northern Morocco. Plenty of showers across central parts of the Mediterranean. These showers turning heavy and thundery across parts of the Balkans and areas of Greece. A mix of sunshine and further showers into next week, and feeling a little bit cooler than of late as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Some schools are banning birthday cakes from the classroom.
Yeah, banning parents from sports. And now the great headline in the Telegraph, Labour puts the knife into nursery birthday cake. Apparently, new guidelines for the Department of Education are saying that you should not send your child into school with a cake when it's their birthday, because it's bad for them, it's going to make them fat, all the rest of this stuff. It's the nanny state once again on the march, isn't it?
Is this a new thing? Because I don't remember ever taking a birthday cake.
Oh, yeah, we
my
did.
birthday.
We
did too.
Took a birthday cake.
And I think some schools I've seen that have a fake birthday cake, which is not nearly as nice, with a fake cake with a candle on, so you sing happy birthday and blow out the candle. But you know, I love the way Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yes.
European GB News presenter has waded into this row saying, well, my children's nanny sends little cakes into school for all the children.
Absolutely.
He said
the nanny sends them
nanny sends them in. Only socialists
know what is acceptable and what isn't.
He says only socialists want to stop such innocent pleasures. And I think there's a real point about that. One school, actually, Broxburn Primary in Harrow, is saying, don't send your child in with a cake. Donate a book to the school library instead. I mean, that is just not a good substitute, is it?
Cakes?
No, my kids are 1 and 3, so they're not quite at that age yet. But
it'll happen.
It does it. But it should, because
it doesn't have to be a big splodgy cake. It can just be something.
But even if it's a bit of a treat, there's no way the calories of school birthday cake are the calories making people fat.
No.
Exactly.
So we should focus on the big issues rather than ruining this fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a killjoy. I think kids should have a bit of fun. I just didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah,
it's all changed since my day.
I think maybe it's the teachers who don't like the sugar rush the kids get afterwards, and they can't keep control in the classroom.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the last part of Sunday with Michael Portillo. As we're now halfway through November, which tipples are best for your festive gatherings? Drinks consultant Lily Thomas joins me now with some enticing samples, which, for those who are listening on the radio, we must explain, are ranged before us.
Yes.
Now, I know, because I've been speaking to you beforehand, that you're going to offer us 2 English sparkling wines. And I was just looking up before I came on air. I believe there are now 1,000 vineyards in the United Kingdom, obviously the vast majority in England, and 10,000 acres under vine, apparently.
OK.
Just tell me a word about the rising popularity of English, particularly English wines, and particularly English sparkling wines.
I mean, we have fantastic weather for English sparkling wine, so they've been growing strength to strength, and I think there's just so much out there and different styles and different regions as well. It's so much to look out for.
I mean, it seems to be, kind of anecdotally, that English wines have sort of broken through a barrier of snobbery. I mean, you know, people used to think, oh, no, I've got to drink something French in particular.
Sorry.
But I reckon that isn't the case anymore. And, I mean, I personally very often go in and demand English sparkling wine because I think it's going to be good, but also because, you know, I want to support the home team, as it were. Now, this fellow is called Future Chateau.
Yes, this is.
And there's something rather special about this.
It is. I'm interested to see how you like it, but this is a low ABV, so it's only 5%. So it's an English company using sort of different grapes as well, but what they're doing is lowering their ABV so it's not as strong, it's not as alcoholic, so it's something that you can have over the party season without it being too alcoholic.
For those of you who are listening on the radio, I should explain that I'm now draining this glass because I've been assured that it's only 5 degrees.
Yeah, it's like drinking a beer.
Well, I think there's absolutely a place for a wine like this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you are drinking a lot over the party season, I mean, particularly if you're sort of hosting, you want to remain fairly compos mentis.
Exactly.
I'm not sure... I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy the next wines more.
Yes.
But I think there's a place for that. And I actually didn't know that you could get a 5% sparkling wine.
No, this is new to the market, and I think it's brilliant because it still has that richness and it's got nice acidity, so you can have it with food, and it's not something too sweet as well. So it's a nice discovery.
Now, here we have a thing called Silverhand. Now, this is a Blanc de Blanc. Now, that means it's likely to be pretty good. And yes, what's more, it's vintage.
Just Chardonnay, yeah. So it's done in the champagne style. And it is a vintage. It's 2018. And I just think this is a really great example of how the English sparkling can sort of stand up next to a champagne, but also, you know, have its own kind of taste and... do its own thing, really, without having to be compared all the time. No way I'm comparing it.
So, rather extraordinarily, champagne is generally made from grapes that have red skins.
Yes.
But the wine pops out white.
Yes.
But this is made exclusively from white grapes.
Chardonnay. So there are 3 grapes, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier and Chardonnay, which are the 3 main champagne grapes. And so this is taking the Chardonnay. So when it's a Blanc de Blanc, it's just the Blanc, which is the Chardonnay. And it's just...
Oh, wow.
I thought you'd like that one, yeah.
Golly, that's nice.
It's really nice. And it's got a creaminess. I think when champagne's made, it has a lot of pastry and brioche notes, but it has like more of a tart creaminess, I think, with this, because I think we have quite sort of lean summers, so it's not going to get too rich or fruity.
Now, here we have a very familiar brand of champagne. Could I have your glass, please?
Yes, it's
this is
to put it in such a little glass.
It is a Taittinger.
Yes.
But this is also vintage.
This is a 16.
A 2016.
Yes, and I think my sort of reasoning, thank you, my reasoning for this is these champagne, the vintages are, the price point is not that much higher, and I think it's so nice to drink a vintage of 1 year, so you get sort of a explanation of that year, and every year is obviously different, and you can sort of see what it tastes like each year.
It's got the most fabulous number of bubbles. It's a gorgeous looking wine. Oh, it's another great wine.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
It's quite different.
It's quite different. I mean, who would want to make the choice between those two? They're both fabulous. Now, what price point?
They're around the same price point. I think if you are looking at about £50.
£50.
So if you're looking at Christmas offers and things like that, that's what I sort of wanted. They get around that point, and I think this is absolutely fantastic and a wine that would drink well with dinner, you know, or just a party on its own.
What a wonderful way to make a living this is. I'm talking about myself now. Now, finally, something completely different.
Completely different, yes. And I thought I would just pop this in because next Thursday is Beaujolais Nouveau Day.
Right.
So the 20th of November, and that's when Beaujolais releases all its young 25 wines that are straight out of the barrel into bottle.
So how have you got hold of this?
Knowing the right people.
Right. So we're drinking this pre-release.
Yes. So it will be out next week, and I just think it's a very fun sort of way to drink red wine. It's very unserious. I think the flavours are very fruity and sweet and light, but not too cloying or overpowering.
You've described that beautifully. I mean, it is fun. So this is not matured in any way. This has not become heavy. This has not become serious.
It's not supposed to be.
There's no snobbery attached to this whatsoever.
Exactly. It's just
you throw it down the...
Yes, in moderation, but yes.
And how many? What's a little? 12.5.
Yeah.
12.5%. So also,
it's a light. It's a light wine for the Beaujolais style. It's not typical of Beaujolais, but it's part of sort of Beaujolais's.
Lily, I'm going to go back to the Silverhammer, the English vintage sparkling wine, and I want to wish you a very happy festive season.
Cheers.
Thank you, Lily. And thanks to all my guests for joining me today for 2 hours of engaging and exciting conversation. I'll be back at the same time next week, but next is going to be Dawn Neeson with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
Michael, that looked lovely. I would have liked to, been invited, but hey, that's fine. No worries. We've got a bubbly show coming up for you as it is. We've got the BBC lecture that compares Trump to a monster. First rule of Hull's BBC, just stop digging. The end of the UK migration golden ticket, or is it? The latest insanity to be inflicted on you if you drive a car. You won't believe what that one's about. And we also have the very latest on, yes, I'm a Celebrity in the Jungle, and everything you always wanted to know about alligators' penises. Not even making this up. All of that coming up. It's going to be a very great show. We'll see you after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Into tonight, it is going to be turning very cold across the country. We'll likely see a widespread frost, a risk of ice, and also some wintry showers. Back to this afternoon, and some wintry showers are on the cards, particularly across Scotland as this cold front sinks south. There will still be some cloud around across southern counties through into this afternoon, but soon being replaced by clear skies. So that means things are going to turn much chillier overnight, quite a widespread frost away from the southeast, and a chance we could see some icy stretches. Remaining mostly dry, though once again we can't rule out some quite blustery, possibly wintry showers around any North Sea coasts, but many areas, particularly across the north, will be dropping below freezing. So a very cold start to the new working week. We got down to -7 degrees Celsius last night across Scotland, so it's likely we'll see similar temperatures in these areas tonight. Also across Northern Ireland, northwest England, a very cold and frosty start. Some patchy frost possible across Wales, central and southern England too, but with some slightly stronger winds, more cloud across parts of the southeast, less so in terms of frost. But nevertheless, it is going to be a cold start and quite a cold day through Monday, but once again it should be dry. There'll be plenty of sunshine, wall-to-wall blue skies for many areas. More cloud across parts of Scotland, once again those North Sea coasts where we could catch these wintry showers once again, but the main wintry showers still will be across Scotland. Feeling very cold, particularly in brisk northerly winds, highs reaching around 8 to 9 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, once again, clear skies will lead to another widespread frost and a risk of ice. So it is going to remain very cold, possibly some more clouds starting to creep into the far northwest of Scotland, bringing in further wintry showers. Into next week, a chance we could see further snow. Otherwise, it will still remain very cold.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even a tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite